Hey everybody, this is Toothy, and today I want to make a bit of a different video than what I would normally make. Usually, if you're familiar with my channel, I'll upload videos that are matches for my stream that I found to be mostly pretty good. But today I've kind of came to the conclusion that I have to acknowledge an issue that I've been having with the game. Now, to clarify, I love Dead by Daylight, I love playing the game, otherwise I wouldn't have put all the time in the game that I have. So really, I do love playing Dead by Daylight, but I have an issue right now with the direction the killer design is going currently, and I wanted to go over that today. So as it stands right now, if we were to pull up a list of all the killers in the game, there are currently 24 killers in the game right now. And out of those 24 killers, I only really enjoy playing 3 of them. I only really like playing Blight, Oni, and Nurse. That's just 3 killers in the game. And the reason why is because I enjoy their movement. I enjoy how unique these killers feel to play, and the special gameplay that they offer. And there aren't a whole lot of killers that are like that in the game right now. And what I mean by this is that there's a lot of innovation that went behind creating their powers. Their powers feel very unique, they feel very special. Nurse being like the biggest example of this. She is the only killer in the game that actually breaks the rules of the game, where you have to be really good at her, but once you get very good at Nurse, she can ignore pallets, she can ignore windows. You have to play as and against Nurse very differently than you would as any other killer because she doesn't obey the normal rules of the game. Furthermore, there's also Blight, who is another killer where you have to be really good with Blight to get really good results. Now, Blight does follow the rules of the game, but unlike a lot of killers in the game, Blight has an exceptionally high skill cap, where to really actually win against solid players, you need to understand Blight. More than that, you need to be good at improvising, and on top of that, you need to understand the collisions very well, because a lack of understanding is a loss of your game there. And then we have Oni. He isn't as mechanically challenging as Blight or Nurse, for instance, but Oni has a little bit more of a strategic end to him, where, alright, he's not as hard to play, but his movement is very fun, and on top of that, the thing about Oni is that you have to make really good decisions in your power. And by this, I mean that if you just waste your power all the time, or you're not using your power effectively, or maybe you're not using your power enough, then that's going to be a problem. You're going to lose because you're not utilizing this power correctly. And so, his whole skill cap is that you have to make really good decisions. On top of this, you also need to know how the survivors are going to behave. Like, when they go to heal, where are they going to go? On top of this, these killers also do have access to perks that you wouldn't typically run on other killers either. Like, on Oni, I could slap on Deathbound, and that's really unique because of the fact that not many killers can get good use out of Deathbound. And I love that there's a perk that has a really good use with them because of the fact that his power is really unique in the sense that when people are injured, they produce blood. And because they're healing up, you know that where they healed up, there's gonna be blood. And Deathbound is so great because when people are outside your terror radius, they will scream, revealing where all the blood is at. And I think that interaction is fantastic in my opinion. I love that. But the problem is that not many killers are like this. There are some other killers that I do like seeing in the game, that I really do enjoy, but I just don't really enjoy playing them quite as much. Like Huntress, Hillbilly, and then there's also, like, Demogorgon 2, where I do enjoy seeing those killers. I just don't like them as much as the other 3 that I mentioned. But here's the reason why I don't really like that many killers in the game, though. For a lot of killers in this game, they are very, like, basic. Like, there's not a whole lot to learning them, and on top of this, a lot of killers in this game are like copy-paste of each other. And by this, I mean, let's take a look at Demogorgon, Pyramid Head, Deathslinger, and Nemesis. They are basically all the same thing, just done differently. where they are all zoning killers. Because the effective way to play them is that you fake out your power, and instead you opt into the M1. And that gets you a very easy hit for free. There is no real outplaying that. You just simply get zoned and you die, because if you go for the window or the pallet, you die. If you don't go for that, you get M1'd. You're still basically dying. You're losing the chase. But they do it differently. Demogorgon moves very fast with his shred, and it's the immediate threat of him being able to charge up his power without much of a movement speed penalty, and being able to immediately cancel it without any penalty at all, really. With Deathslinger, he can just pull up his gun, and he doesn't even really even have to do that. He just zones you by existing. Pyramid Head, he puts a sword in the ground, and you can't do anything. His attack can go through walls. And you will just die. If you drop the pallet, you die. If you vault the window, you die. And his cancel animation is pretty short, so if he cancels it, you still get hit. Nemesis is the same issue. He can wind up his power very, very fast, and if you take the action, or the prompt to drop a pallet, vault a pallet, or a window, you get hit. And then, on top of that, there are other killers like Trickster who annihilate in filler pallets, but get demolished in proper tiles like Jungle Gyms, Killer Shack, and main structures, depending on how that is laid out. But then you have other killers who are very similar to each other, such as Myers and Ghostface. They are different versions of the same exact killer, basically. Or, you know, you have some killers who just don't really participate in Dead by Daylight in what it is meant to be, the chases. So you take Trapper or Hag, for instance. They don't really play out chases for the most part because that is usually the weaker way of playing them. Like with Hag, you're not going to chase someone down as a 110 killer. You're going to set up your traps, and then you're going to defend one section of the map. While Trapper can chase, he's also going to be basically bunkering down in, like, you know, one section of the map because he needs to set up. But the best way to put it is that, you know, there's just not very many killers that are very unique. There's not very many killers who offer a high skill cap. And to me, as someone who's played this game for over 4,000 hours, almost going on 5,000 hours, it really sucks to look at pretty much over half the roster and realize that not only does their playstyle not really match what you're looking for, but there's also not really a whole lot to really learn with the game either. And you can also see this lack of innovation as well in behavior because of the fact that, alright, let's just ignore power design for a moment. Let's take a look at add-ons. A lot of the add-ons are also copy-paste of each other, and I will go through all of the add-ons actually, but I have summarized it. You can summarize the add-ons in 4 different categories. You're either going to get tracking, whether this be in the form of aura reading, screams, killer instinct, or some other form of tracking like generator aura intensity, or you'll get undetectable. You may even get an exposed add-on in the form of a power instant downing you or the actual effect itself. And finally, movement. Let's take a look at all those killers, and let's just see what you find. Let's start off with Nemesis. We take a look at his add-ons. First thing we see, zombie movement speed. Second thing that we see, exposed effect. Let's go over to Trickster. We get, well, this one is actually pretty unique, I'll be honest. So you get the death throws. The more that you throw your knives, the more they land, the more damage they do. Or the more laceration they'll deal, I should say. But then you get an instant down add-on. Not very creative. Let's go over to Twins. Undetectable and exposed. You can kind of see the theme here. With Blight, you get exposed, and you also have... Well, Compound 33 is kind of unique, but it does have a tracking aspect to it, which is that you can pay attention to the scoring event, and 16 meters is a small enough area to where if you see that go off, you pretty much know where the person is, especially where they'll leave off these orange particles on them. So this kind of counts as tracking in a way. But maybe I can let that slip and say it's a unique add-on. Let's go to Executioner, though. You have Undetectable and then aura reading. Let's go to Deathslinger. We have exposed aura reading. We have different kinds of tracking add-ons. Now let's go over to Demogorgon. We have undetectable, and we have aura reading. Faster exposed effect, aura reading. Actually a pretty unique add-on. I cannot complain about Iridescent Seal. It gives you your power whenever a generator is done. But then you have aura reading. Now we have tracking and tracking. They're different forms of tracking add-ons, but you have Killer Instinct and Aura Intensity, which, for some reason, you even lose this information if you even dare to chain stab somebody once. Spirit, you have movement and, well, tracking, because you can see blood while you're in your power. Clown, you have aura reading and exposed. Pig, you have rule set number 2, which is basically a downgrade. And then you have aura reading. Freddy's add-ons are actually pretty unique. They're not very good, but they're actually pretty unique. Bubba's are actually pretty unique. Can't really complain about that. Doctor, you have tracking, and then whatever this mess is, where it's just a combination of all his other add-ons, but in iridescent form. Then you have Hag. Movement, and, well, Minrag is pretty unique, but I feel like this kind of counts as movement. You have Myers, who actually has pretty unique add-ons, but he does have basically unlimited exposed, which is more or less an exposed add-on. But the Judas Tombstone is actually pretty unique. But then you go back into the trend of the add-ons. Movement and Insta-Down. Movement. These are both movement add-ons. Then you have stealth add-ons, again. So they can't hear chainsaw and you become undetectable. I liked it better when Lopro was an iridescent, because that was actually pretty unique. Wraith, you have stealth. They don't hear your bell go off. And then you have tracking in the form of generator auras. And then Trapper's add-ons are actually pretty unique. You have resetting traps, and then traps that injure you if you disarm them. Pretty unique, honestly. But when you look at most of those add-ons, you kind of realize that there's a massive pattern. And as I mentioned before, a big majority of those add-ons fit into 4 different categories. And I guess what really frustrates me is that Behavior doesn't think outside the box. They reuse a lot of things in this game, and a lot of the killers end up playing the same way. And after a certain point, I just have to acknowledge that I enjoy the game, but I only enjoy a handful of the killers that exist in the game. And while this is super picky, Behavior is also very repetitive with the numbers they use. As much as I like Blight and Hillbilly, they use the same speed, 9.2 meters per second at base. If you look at Nemesis and Trickster, they have the same windup time, 0.35 seconds. If you look at... who else is there, actually? I think that would have to be, like, a different video at this point, but you can kind of get where I'm coming from, though. Freddy and Clown, they have the same 15% hindered. And I believe Blight's add-on, Compound 33, also uses the same 15% hindered effect. So, they also like to reuse numbers a lot. And while I cannot fault Behavior, I just wanted to make a video that just kind of quickly went over my biggest issue in the game right now, which is just that there's nothing really that different about their releases. And ultimately, if you look at perks, add-ons, or killers, they're either better or worse versions of each other, or they're just literal copy-paste, more than anything. So, really, the main point that I wanted to get at is that I'm really frustrated that, as a longtime player, there's only so many killers that I can play before I run out of options. There are only so many things that I can learn before that killer eventually ends up being boring to me. And I hate that, because Dead by Daylight is a very unique game, and I hate the direction that the game is currently going in, where everyone basically feels like a copy-paste of each other. But outside of that, I know I'm going to go in circles if I keep on going out about this more and more. But I guess the last thing I wanted to go over, though, is just feel free to give me your thoughts. Feel free to, like, tell me what you're thinking about the game right now, and what are your thoughts currently? Do you like these kind of videos? Definitely let me know, because I'm looking to make, like, a video about this at least once a week. But tell me how y'all think about this, and other than that, hope to see you all soon. Have a great one, everybody.